This video will be structured in 6 parts. I will put the structure of the video in the description below, and also I will put the plan, the broad structure of the Encyclopedia by Hegel. And here are the 6 points that I will develop. The first point is that I believe that I have just understood an idea, a very important idea, and that's why I am making this video. In the second part, I will talk about logic briefly and the logic of the concept. In the third part, I will talk about the singular aspect of what I have understood, I believe, is the concept. In the fourth part, I will talk about the particular aspect of the concept. In the fifth part, I will talk about the universal aspect of the concept. And in the sixth part, I will talk about European paganism. And that's what I have to say. So, I will begin by the idea that I have just understood. I will read what I wrote. I will be honest. And I know that I will be punished for my honesty. But at this point, what I wrote is that God, as I envision him, is so brilliant. And I wrote that the so-called Christians, Muslims, and Jews have such a narrow vision of God. I will be punished for saying this, but they believe that God is great because he wrote the Bible or the Quran or the Torah or whatever. But the idea that God just wrote the Bible or the Quran or the Torah is so narrow and restricted because the way I envision God, he wrote all the books, not just the religious books, but all the books. He is the intelligence which structures reality. And I wrote, God, as I envision him in some moments, is so smart that he makes Hegel look like an idiot. And honestly, knowing how much intellectual admiration I have for Hegel, in spite of all the conflicts that I have with Hegel, for me, Hegel, in my development, I once said that Hegel was God, or the mind of God, or whatever, but now that in my process, I understand that Hegel, no matter how intelligent he was or is or whatever, in comparison to the intelligence of God, Hegel is dumb. And that's the highest praise that I can make for Hegel, I guess, and for God. So, yeah. And I will be honest, I wrote, because I had a moment of understanding, that if I could talk directly to God, I would say that I love you so much because you are so amazing. And I also wrote, this is a thought that I have had, I wouldn't say several times, but a few times over my intellectual development. I do not understand how so much intelligence can cause so much suffering. And sometimes I think about this entity that we call God, and I imagine him or this entity, I don't know if we can speak of a him, and I feel compassion because I don't understand how this infinite intelligence can use so much intelligence to create suffering. I don't get this idea. I don't understand. And to be honest, I have had moments in my intellectual development where I thought that I had entered the mind of God, notably in August 2018. But when I envision God as I do now, the idea that I might be God is so ludicrous that I cannot seriously believe this. That's why I talk about the he, because I know myself to be cognitively limited. I am a human being with a limited IQ, and God, as I envision him, this infinite intelligence, is so beyond me that I cannot be God, and that's probably why I identify as the negative of God, because that's what I had to say about God. So absolute brilliance. That's what I had to say. So now about logic, because what triggers my thoughts about this view of God was thinking about logic and the concept. So about logic. In classical Aristotelian pre-Hegelian logic, we have the distinction between, when we talk about the concept, what is a concept, between the singular, the particular, and the universal. And the classical example is Socrates, man, mortal. All men are mortal, Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. That's a syllogism, but the moments of the concept are the singularity, the particularity, and the universality. And here, the singularity is Socrates, the man, the individual, but it could be Thucydides, or Pericles, or Democritus, or Plato, or any other singularity, Greek or non-Greek, but here I remain in the realm of classical Greek civilization. Then the particularity is man or Greek. These are particularities of Socrates, but we could choose another particularity, Macedonian or Persian, but Socrates was not a Macedonian nor a Persian, so this would be valid for Alexander or Xerxes or whoever. Or we could replace man by bulls or horses, because bulls and horses are mortal as well. These are mammals, living organisms, and they are mortal as well. So the universality is mortal, and it applies to all living organisms. And so this is an illustration. Singularity, particularity, universality. And one of the basic rules of classical logic is that what is valid for the universal, what is true for the universal, is also true of the particular and the singular, because there is the universality and it includes within itself the particular and the singular. But the opposite, the inverse, is not true. It's not reciprocally true. What is true of the singular is not necessarily true of the universal. If I say that Socrates has a beard, not all mortal creatures have beards. A horse does not have a beard, but it is mortal nonetheless. A woman doesn't have a beard. Usually women don't have beards. Maybe some women do. Sorry. Logic is the most comical thing in the world. So, also, the singular is what is fully determined, and we have a word for this in Hegel's philosophy. It's concrete. What is concrete for Hegel is what is fully determined. So, only the singular is concrete and fully determined because we access the particular and the universal by abstracting determinations, by leaving aside determinations. If I say a Greek, it is a particular determination, but I don't know if it's a Greek man or a Greek woman, a Greek soldier or a Greek priest or a Greek farmer or whatever. But so when I go from Socrates to Greek, I abstract, leave aside determinations. So and when I go from Greek to mortal, I leave even more determinations. So this is classical logic. But then we have Hegel, who says that to oppose the singular, the particular, and the universal moments is a moment of der Verstand. And now I've made videos about der Verstand, die Vernunft. You can check my videos, Die Wissenschaft der Logik, because I will not repeat in every video. I expect you, if you're interested in my content, to follow my other videos. So Hegel says that I will call now SPU. S means singular, P means particular, U means universal. So SPU. SPU are moments of the same unity, moments of the same totality. And what I have understood, the reason why I'm making this video, is that every human being is a concept. So every human being carries within himself SPU. Every human being is a singular individual with particular characteristics and a universal aspect, so to speak. And this is why they say that humans are made in the image of God, in God's image. And because God is the concept, and every human being is a mirror image of God, because every human being is a mirror of the concept. And now I will explain why. Okay, I will talk about the singular aspect. What every human beings, every thinking humans, which leaves aside very young children and very old degenerative persons who have lost the ability to think consciously. So every thinking person, in his or her everyday life, in his average ordinary consciousness, what he calls me, myself, me, you, is the singular self, namely the psychology, the personal history, the memories, and when I say psychology, I mean the personality and character, the mental features, if you will, of what you call yourself, your me, your I, your identity, and also a body. Every human being has a singular body. So the singular self, the singular moment of the concept is what we call me. And I myself, I identify 95% of the time with this singular individual that you see. And I think of myself as having my own character, my own temper, my own personality, my own personal history, my own memories. And this constitutes my own body. And this constitutes 95% of the time what I call me. This is my singular aspect. Okay, so now I will talk about the particular self. This will be the longest moment of the video, and I will put the structure of Hegel's Encyclopedia in the description to illustrate. We will leave aside the logical aspect, because I am talking about logic in this video, so we'll leave aside the logical aspect. We will consider the determinations of nature and of spirit. In the realm of nature, every singular human has physical determinations. In the language of modern scientists, every physical human is a determination of the quantum field, basically. And it is said by quantum physicists that our bodies do not have distinct limits. We think that we have a limited body, but on the quantum level, our body is one with the entire field of the electromagnetic and gravitational field. So yeah, so every individual body is a particular determination of the universal physical field. Every singular body has particular chemical determinations. Human bodies are made of a certain quantity of certain atoms, so we are chemical beings, so to speak. And then every singular individual has particular organic biological determinations. We are a particular set of organisms, namely mammals, Homo sapiens, mammals. I'm not an expert in the biological classification, but we can classify ourselves in the history of life, and we have a particular position in this organic tree of life. And also, as biological creatures, developed and highly complex biological creatures, we are particularized in genders. From a biological standpoint, there are males and females within the human species. And then there's also the question, what is the difference between one particularity and the other? And here we go back to the realm of logic, whereas Hegel says that there is continuity and discretion, in the sense that the difference between, I will talk about this later, but the difference between two ethnically different people is both continuous and discrete, in a sense that that's complex, but I will skip this for now. But yeah, because I know that there are human beings who are, from a biological standpoint, they are males in a female body or females in a male body. So these are statistical exceptions. This can happen, but I believe, I'm not an expert in gender biology, but that any human being is either male or female, and there's no in between. I'm not sure, but yeah. And now, in the realm of spirit, the particular determinations of human beings. I will use the logical structure of the Encyclopedia. We begin by what Hegel calls anthropology, which is what we today call sociobiology. And it includes the ethnic divide or the racial divide and the male-female divide within the human species. And to illustrate this, each singular individual is a singularization of a particular group of humans. Namely, each individual human belongs to a particular race. And here we encounter the problem of continuity and discretion, because there are mixed-raced persons. What race do they belong to? This is a quantitative problem, a quantitative determination. So each singular human has a race or an ethnicity from a biological standpoint, and a gender. And each brain is a singular brain, but is a singularization of the particularities of the racial group to which it belongs. So there is the universal brain, which is the human brain, which is Homo sapiens. Then there are the particular brains of each ethnic group. And then there are the singular brains. And to go from the universal to the particular to the singular, it's a matter of quantitative determinations, statistics, biological lottery. It's very complex. But yeah, that's the idea of SPU, singular, particular, universal. The universal is mankind, the human species. The particular is the racial group to which you belong. And the singular is the individual, that which you are. And as an individual, you carry within yourself your racial particularity. Even if you are a mixed-race person with ancestors of 10 different racial groups, you are nonetheless racially determined. And whatever your race and your ethnicity, you belong to the universality, which is mankind. And if there were among the thinking population of humans non-Homo sapiens groups, pre-human or a different branch, then we would just change the structure. Namely, the universality would be Homo, and the particularities would be Homo sapiens, and the other particularity would be whatever other human group would live with a consciousness. So you can always change the level of classification, because I made a video about Kantian logic. A universal is always the particular aspect of a higher universality. So you can modify the level and the structure. Then we have the realm of consciousness. I will skip that. Then we have the realm of psychology. And here each individual has its particular psychological characteristics, IQ, character, personality. There is the singular aspect, but the particular aspect is that you inherit your singular IQ from a particular set of a certain lottery in the distribution of the bell curve. There is the ideal bell curve, and then it particularizes itself into a set of singular individuals. So you inherit your IQ from the lottery of bell curve distribution, and the singular character, the features, the personality, there are, to talk like Plato, the particularities, the archetype of personality, that which the psychologists study, and each particular archetypes is singularized in individuals, but the archetypes are the particularities of the human mind. So whoever you are, you have inherited by a process which is at this moment unknown to us, you have inherited particular determinations of character, conscientiousness, I don't know all of them, but your particular characteristics. So yeah. Then we enter the realm of objective spirit, which is in the continuity of subjective spirit, and one can say that psychology is the basis of everything objective: law, economics, sociology, history, politics, and so on and so forth. As an individual, I will use the structure of Hegel's Encyclopedia. You are a particular member of a certain determinate set of laws. You belong to a country. And to speak like Hegel, even if there are, how do you call this in English, people who have lost their nationality, who are without a nation, who have either because their state has collapsed or because they have lost their civil rights, whatever, even if you are without citizenship, you are still categorized as not having a citizenship. That's still part of the idea of citizenship, because it's the negation, so to speak. So as an individual, whoever you are a particular citizen of a particular country. So you are determined by, for instance, the American Constitution. You are a citizen of the American Constitution, for instance, or the French Constitution, or the whatever. And you can even go further into the particularization, because the US are a federal state, and you can be a US citizen, but also a citizen of the state of California or Virginia or Michigan or Texas or whatever. So that's what I said previously. There are several layers of particularity and universality, because each particularity can be the singularity of a higher universality, or each universality can be the particularity of a higher universality, etc. So I made a video about Kantian logic in which Kant explains this very well. So yeah, this is your particular legislative, constitutional self, so to speak. And you are determined to be who you are because of the laws and the legislation of your country. And if you disobey the laws of your country, you're going to go to jail or have problems with the state. Then there's the sphere of morality, which is connected to the realm of psychology, so I will skip that for now. And then there's what Hegel calls Sittlichkeit, which includes within itself family, economics, sociology, the state. And here, each singular individual is a particular member of a family. You are the child of your parents, you are the brother of your brothers or your sisters, you are the father of your children, you are the cousin of your cousin, etc., etc. So you are in a particular determinate relationship with family members. In the realm of economics, you are the embodiment of a certain class, a socio-economic class, or a category. Your job, you are a singular worker in your job, whatever this is, even if you are a beggar. But you are the embodiment of the class, of the particularity. Baker, financial advisor, movie director, hairdresser, bank clerk, whatever your occupation. Then it is connected to the realm of economics. You are the member of a sociological class. You are the sociological classification are not always clear, but you are either bourgeois or high middle class, lower middle class, working class, underclass, aristocracy, if it exists in your country, or whatever. And your economic and sociological status determine you to have to pay a certain amount of taxes, to have certain obligations and duties towards the state, etc., etc. Then you are the member of a state, and even if you are not, you are defined in opposition to the belonging to a certain determinate state. And in this sense, you inhabit a certain country, or you were born in a certain country, and you carry within you the history of this country, for better and for worse. You are a product of your country. And even if you were born in a country and then you moved at the age of whatever, 3 years old, and then you moved again because your parents traveled or because of a war and you were a refugee or whatever, you carry within yourself particular determinations of certain countries. And it means that you have a certain cultural, political history with a certain set of particular countries. And also, you are a child of the history of this country. Even if you are a Turkish immigrant going to Germany, you are partly member of the history of Germany, because the reason why Germany accepts you as a Turkish immigrant can only be properly understood if one studies the history of Germany. So even if you are torn apart between the history of Turkey and the history of Germany, you are nonetheless a particular particularized. Yeah. And then each particular member of a country or of a certain history is a moment in the development of world history. World history is the history which includes the whole of mankind within itself. Yeah. Now, the realm of absolute spirit. Each singular individual has a particular attraction, is attracted to a certain kind, and the word kind in English is another word. It's a terminology for what we call particularity in logic. So a certain type, a certain kind of artistic expression. All those who have the opportunity, every thinking human who has the opportunity is spontaneously attracted to a certain expression of cultural expression or artistic expression. And the same goes for religion. Every thinking human has a certain type of relationship to religion, and this is always the moment of the negative. Even atheists, one can say they have no religion, but the absence of religion defines itself in relationship to religion. So whether you are an atheist or a Christian or a Muslim or a Buddhist or a New Age, whatever, you have a certain type of affiliation, of a relationship with religion. And then philosophy, every thinking human beings is in relation to a certain type of philosophy. Even those who do not know what philosophy is, by following Proverbs, the popular wisdom, it's a certain type of philosophy, one could say. So every thinking human in the age and the capability of thinking is connected to a certain type of thought, so to speak. And the distinction between philosophy and religion is not very clear, but Hegel says that they're the same, basically. Yeah, this is what I had to say about the particular. So now I will talk about the universal. the universal moment. Each singular individual has particular characteristics. This is what I have broadly showed in the entire part about particularities. But each particularity is a particularization of the universal. Each particular country is a country. The universal in this case is the country, countryhood, the idea of countryness, whatever, the Platonic idea. And each particular country, I believe that there are more than 200 countries in the world today, is a particularization of a country. And a country, I have not thought deeply about what a country is, but usually it's a geographic determination. It's a certain piece of land, and even the utopias, the libertarian utopias of building libertarian countries on an offshore platform in the middle of the sea, that's still a spatial determination, still a geographic, even if it's not Earth, it would be made of metal, but it would still be a geographic determination, a spatial determination. So a country is a geographic determination with a certain set of legislative determinations. So it's natural and objective spirit. And subjective spirit because a country has to have inhabitants, at least one, because a country without inhabitants would be kind of problematic. So yeah. Then another illustration, each particular group of humans, racially or ethnically, is a particularization of the universality, which is mankind. Asians, Africans, Europeans are particular moments in the universality, which is mankind. And each particular religion or philosophy is a particular view of the universal, that which we call God, which is the universal, and each particular religion is a particular view of what God is, and each philosophy is a particular view of what the universal, which is God, is. So, Hegel says that the universal can be grasped only through thought. The universal is invisible, immaterial. It can only be thought about. It can only be grasped through a cognitive process. But the question is, can we think without a brain? Can we think independently of our human incarnation, of our human presence within a body with a brain? As of now, it seems quite difficult. So that may be the reason why the concept particularizes and singularizes himself to enable himself to think about himself. And this is why the Christian said that in the Christian religion, God makes himself man. The infinite becomes finite. Yeah. And now, to talk about morality. The singular moment of the concept is the realm of selfishness and wickedness. This is why people say human beings are selfish and wicked, because our singularity, our singular self, is the moment which excludes from itself all other singularities. Each human has his own desires, needs, and wicked tendencies as a singular self. This is what we call evil, the singularity, in its retreat within its own singular self. Then, the realm of particularity. It's ambiguous because the particular aspect, which I have listed countless examples, is the realm of unity. My particularity unites me with all those who share the same particularity, so I feel a certain sense of belonging with those who share the same particularity as me. For instance, males, Europeans, and people between 25 and 35 years old, because they belong to my generation. So these are the kind of particularities that I have as a singular self, and I feel closer maybe to these people than to others. So it's the realm of unity, but also the realm of opposition, the realm of conflict, because as a male, I am not a female, and I am in opposition to females, so I am in conflict with females, but at the same time, I am attracted by females. And as someone between 25 and 35, I don't know what's the name of this generation, but someone of my generation, I feel closer to the people of my generation, but I can only understand my generation as the product of the generations that came before. Those who are between 35 and 55, and those who are even older, and even those who are no longer with us, which we call our ancestors, who were, in a historical perspective, the agents of world history, and the present is the result of the past from a historical perspective. And to talk about Europeans, the European identity is a particular determination which is opposed to all non-Europeans, non-European Caucasoids, Mongoloids, Negroids, native Indians, and Australian Aborigines, to talk in terms of racial anthropology, but then we could talk about in terms of culture, but whatever. But within this particularity, which is European identity, from the strict, I will talk here about the term of anthropology. European is an anthropological determination. It's a particularization of mankind. But within this particularity, if we take the particularity European Caucasoid, whites, as a universality, that's what I said previously in the video, you can always elevate the particular to the universal, not always, but most of the time. Then we find particularities within the now universality, which is European Caucasoid. These are the various sub-racial groups of Europeans. And if you take European as a cultural determination, it's the universal, but within the universal identity, cultural European, there are particular identities. There are Frenchmen, Germans, Italians, and they differ from one another. And the particularity is the realm of unity and conflict. Because historically, the Germans and the French have been in conflict with one another, the Germans and the English, the German and the Italians, the Spanish and the French, the Poles and the Germans, the Poles and the Russians, etc., etc., etc. So the realm of the particular is ambiguous because it is both unity and exclusion, brotherhood and conflict. And then there's the realm of universality, which is the realm of pure unity. And the illustration that I can make is mathematics. In our day and age, people believe that mathematics is true and that all thinking humans can agree on mathematical truths. That's the most basic standard that we can agree on, is that mathematics. If I say 2 + 2 = 4, most thinking people would agree. So, but the purpose of Hegel is to show that humans should not only agree in the realm of mathematics, but in the realm of philosophy and religion. And the universality is the moment of God, and eventually God has to make sure that every thinking human is in agreement with God. And that's problematic because each human being is conflicted because of this three-part process. Each human being is in conflict with himself, that's the moment of the singular, with others, that's the moment of the particularity, and with God in a way. And God is in conflict with himself as well, because he has these three moments within himself. And this is the root of all conflicts. And yeah. That's why life is a struggle against the self to try to the best of one's abilities to favor what is universal in us, namely the truth, the good. But the problem, and here I have to criticize Hegel, because Hegel says God is the truth, the universal is the truth. But Hegel says at the same time that the universal cannot exist without the singular and the particular. So that's the whole difficulty of the process. Yeah. And now I will talk about European pagans. Europeans, whites, have lost their identity. Most humans, all humans have lost their identity, but Europeans have lost their identity even more than others. And Europeans in this day and age are confronted by negation, namely the demographic replacement of Europeans and the threat of extinction, biological and eventually cultural extinction. And this threat, this negative, forces some Europeans to ask themselves, who are we? What is our identity? And they are forced to think about their particularities, the values that they cherish. They think about law and legislation, about politics, economics, culture. This is the moment of conservatism, the defense of Western identity. It's expressed in terms of values, law, politics, economics, and eventually culture. And then there are those who question not only these particular determinations of themselves, but also the racial and psychological aspect of themselves, so their particular anthropological and psychological self. And these are the right-wingers, the alt-right, white nationalists, white racists, eventually. And they question these particularities, and this is a territory that those who defend conservative values or Western civilization, they do not go into this territory because that's politically incorrect and that's conflictual and problematic. And then there are those who are not satisfied either with Western identity or white identity, so they go even further into the realm of questioning, investigating, searching for their identity, and they enter the realm of art and religion. And this is the pagan right-wing Europeans who search for their artistic expressions in folk song, traditional European folk culture, fairy tales, music, paintings, drawings, sculptures, etc., architecture, and so on. And religion, European mythology, paganism, European spirituality, and they are not many as of now, but these are people who question their particularities. And since the particular is a determination of the universal, they eventually are in search of the universal, which is God. And these people will find eventually at some moment that they are searching not only an artistic identity and a religious identity, but also a philosophical identity. And hopefully I can provide them with the philosophy that they are searching for. And now I will talk about my personal experience. There are people, really existing human beings, that I have recognized as living concepts and with whom I have had spiritual experiences. And I did not understand why it happened, how it happened, what happened when this happened. But now, many years later, I am starting to understand, is because these right-wing pagans with whom I have had spiritual experiences, they are singular peoples who have gone on a quest to search for their particular identities. And because the singular, the particular, and the universal which is God or spirit, exist in a reciprocal kind of conflictual unity, this is why my universal self, my mind, has recognized their mind, and this is why they are the most spiritually enlightened people in the world as of now, because they have gone through the process of searching and discovering their particularities, but at the same time they have discovered their singularities and their universality. And I will conclude by saying that what Hegel calls the concept is a process of self-conceptualization. It is self-thinking thought. This is philosophy. Self-thinking thought. But the question to which, as of now, I have no answer is, why does the concept needs or wants to embody himself in a human form? Why does the infinite becomes finite, knowing that the realm of the finite is the realm of suffering? Why does spirit become physical? Yeah. But I have understood this, and yeah. So, yeah.